This is an expert Bitcoin price prediction from $10,000 to $28,000 in 2022 and beyond, as well as BTC and technical analysis. 1. Expert Bitcoin price forecasts from $10,000 to $28,000 in 2022 and beyond. 2. Bitcoin price predictions for 2022, $10,000 minus $28,000. 3. Bitcoin price prediction, can BTC regain previous heights? Expert Bitcoin price forecasts from $10,000 to $28,000 in 2022 and beyond. Bitcoin had a rough first half of the year, but analysts believe it will ultimately reach $100,000. It's only a question of when, not if. Despite the volatility and recent price drop, many experts believe that Bitcoin is on its way to crossing the $100,000 barrier, albeit they differ on when that will happen. In addition, according to recent Deutsche Bank research, over a fifth of Bitcoin investors think Bitcoin values will exceed $110,000 in 5 years. Volatility is nothing new, and it is one of the main reasons why experts advise novice crypto investors to be very careful when committing a portion of their portfolio to cryptocurrency. Bitcoin's value has risen steadily over the years, as has the value of every other cryptocurrency on the market. It makes sense for Bitcoin investors to want to know how high the currency could go in the future. What is causing the current price movement of Bitcoin? Bitcoin's price fell sharply on Thursday morning after the announcement of September inflation figures. According to the report, inflation grew faster than projected, jumping 0.4% in the previous month and 8.2% in the previous year, according to the report. Based on these numbers, the price of Bitcoin has dropped below $19,000 and is quickly getting close to $18,000. Bitcoin's values have stayed low but constant over the previous week, unable to stay over $20,000 for more than a short period of time. The token has been primarily within the $19,000 price range. Bitcoin's flaws arise from a run of unfavorable economic news in recent months, which has shifted market sentiment to the downside, including the most recent inflation figures. Even though the price of Bitcoin has gone down, it has done better in the past few weeks than stocks, gold, the European euro, the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan, and the British pound. According to analysts, Bitcoin's recent resilience in comparison to other assets over the past month might be because the token is becoming a wonderful conduit for US cash as other currencies collapse, or it could be because long-term crypto investors are undeterred by recent blows to the US economy. In any event, Bitcoin's price remains low but stable as other assets plummet. The token's price has dropped by more than 60% since the beginning of the year. Given the contrast between terrible stock performance and relatively consistent crypto performance, some are questioning whether crypto is indicating that it will quit following the stock market. Experts are not convinced, at least not yet. Even though the link between stock prices and cryptocurrency prices has been getting weaker in recent weeks, analysts think that cryptocurrency will take longer to break away from stocks. And, although Bitcoin is staying stable, it is not yet out of the woods. There are a lot of things happening at the end of the year that could tip the scales, like the midterm elections, inflation numbers, Federal Reserve meetings, and a possible peak in the strength of the US dollar. Plus, the world is still dealing with the effects of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The market remains fragile and on edge, not necessarily due to risks from additional crypto projects going bankrupt, but because of the severe economic scenario we are now experiencing, said Martin Heespoke, Uphold's director of blockchain and crypto research. In other words, the price of Bitcoin is more affected by the supply of gas to Germany than by any crypto-related news or measure. With no end in sight, analysts predict that the crisis in Ukraine, inflation, and changing monetary policy in the United States will generate even greater volatility in the coming months. Bitcoin has only been over $45,000 for brief periods in the last 6 months, and it hasn't been above $50,000 since December 25, 2021. Despite the ups and downs, Bitcoin's current price is still a long way from the all-time high it reached in November, when it surpassed $68,000. Despite the current price drop, Bitcoin is still more than twice as valuable as it was only a few years ago. These types of ups and downs are nothing new for Bitcoin. Bitcoin price predictions for 2022, $10,000 minus $28,000. Bitcoin's price is exceedingly difficult to forecast, and it is considerably more vulnerable to market forces than more established asset classes. However, we decided to consult several experts for their best projections for 2022. crypto and the stock market have had a rough first half of 2022. Investors have shied away from riskier assets as the economy slows, inflation rises, and interest rates rise. Given that Wall Street is in a bear market that analysts predict to continue for a few more months, Bitcoin might return to $28,000 by the end of the year, according to Deutsche Bank research. Meanwhile, according to Finder, a 53-expert panel forecasts that Bitcoin's price will reach at least $25,000 by the end of 2022. However, one analyst is skeptical that Bitcoin has reached its lowest price of the year. Wendy O, a cryptocurrency market expert, believes Bitcoin will fall below $10,000 since it has a history of correcting up to 85% in previous bad markets. According to O, the biggest cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, set an all-time high in November 2021 at over $68,000, thus an 85% fall would take it to around $10,000. However, it will not be a straight shot down. According to O's technical analysis, Bitcoin has numerous resistance levels, so a wild return higher is expected before Bitcoin totally bottoms out this year. Crypto trader DonAlt posts Bitcoin price prediction on Twitter. I'm buying now. DonAlt tweeted a fresh Bitcoin price forecast today to his 469,000 followers on Twitter and YouTube, where he also has subscribers to the Technical Roundup YouTube channel. DonAlt tweeted that he is buying now at $19,000 and is always comfortable purchasing below $20,000. He isn't ruling out Bitcoin falling in the near term, in which case he'll buy more and add to his spot position, but warns against using leverage with CPI data due on Thursday. DonAlt Crypto Twitter Bitcoin price prediction. DonAlt's reasoning, which is supported by many other famous crypto Twitter accounts such as Traders Z and Cryptizo, is that the markets have been pounded and beaten down to the point that a move to the upside is more possible at the moment, even if only to put pressure on shorts within the long-term macro decline. His advice is to purchase the drop in Bitcoin now when the market is depressing, rather than FOMOing into green candles and $100,000 plus price estimates provided by the most vociferous Bitcoin bulls, such as Michael Saylor. DonAlt also tweeted that his gut sense for the trad markets is negative, but that crypto will eventually decouple and rise. In recent days, Bitcoin has shown indications of resiliency versus the SPX. Although this has been a symptom of cryptocurrencies falling behind thus far in 2022, DonAlt is confident that the association between Bitcoin and equities will stop. DonAlt's latest prediction about the price of Bitcoin is important because he has a lot of followers and because he correctly predicted that a bear market would start around the high in November 2021. DonAlt tweeted something along the lines of "See you guys in a year" after Bitcoin printed an SFP near the old $65,000 high. Then, when Bitcoin's price started its now almost 12-month decline, DonAlt advised against buying a stake, preferring to stay in cash until now. He was also critical of Do Kwon and Terra Luna long before the disaster in May 2022. DonAlt highlighted the price levels above later in his Bitcoin analysis video. He said that although he does not believe Bitcoin will reach $33,000 in the near term, by the first quarter of 2023, he also does not believe it will reach the $12–14,000 range, a typical price objective of Bitcoin bearish and monthly support. His current price goal for Bitcoin is $29,000, which is where he plans to sell it to reduce risk. Price movements in cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is getting close to $19,200 and has gained about 1% in the last 24 hours. This is a big change from earlier in the day when PPI data and FOMC minutes were released and caused the price to drop slightly. Given Bitcoin's current strength, Cryptizo, who has 115,000 followers, predicts a surge tomorrow if the CPI shows a hint of anything good. Several cryptocurrencies we've been keeping an eye on are making news again. Tamadoge is up 29% in the last day on OKX exchange. After Binance burned more than 3 billion LUNC from the supply, Terra Classic is on the rise. The IMPT token Prezale is also approaching the $4 million level. Bitcoin price prediction: can BTC regain previous heights? Bitcoin has failed to retain much of its position above $20,000 in recent months, dropping below that level for most of late September and early October 2022 after recovering from a 19-month low of $17,708.62 in June. Bitcoin's value has remained considerably below its all-time high of $68,789.63, which was hit in November 2021. Market analysts have had to adjust their expectations. Many had expected that the coin would reach $100,000, a Bitcoin price projection that now seems extraordinarily optimistic, with many forecasts dropping their Bitcoin projected values, at least in the medium term. How does Bitcoin function? Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency founded in 2008 by an unknown inventor known as Satoshi Nakamoto. Bitcoin is mined and given out on a blockchain, which is a peer-to-peer digital record that uses encryption to check transactions and carry them out. The Bitcoin was formally started in January 2009 when the first block on the blockchain, known as the Genesis block, was mined. Each new block has a proof-of-work protocol that must be approved by the network. Miners employ computer processing power to validate the cryptographic hashes in each block. Miners earn transaction fees from the block as well as a certain number of freshly created bitcoins as a reward for mining a new block. A maximum circulating quantity of 21 million coins was intended to have the mining incentive for new coins decreased by half after every 210,000 blocks mined, a phenomenon known as halving. The most recent halving took place on May 11, 2020, lowering the block reward to 6.25 BTC. The next halving will occur in 2024. There were around 19.2 million bitcoins in circulation as of October 11, 2022. With the events that cut the number of new coins in half, it is expected that all 21 million BTC will not be in circulation until 2140. Bitcoin price history. Now, let's look at some Bitcoin price history. Even though past performance shouldn't be used to predict what will happen in the future, knowing what the currency has done in the past few years may give us the context we need to make our own BTC price prediction or understand one that is already out there. The restricted supply intends to keep Bitcoin scarce, boosting its value as an inflationary asset over time as demand grows but availability stays constant. The price of Bitcoin has risen around past halvings, rising from $12 at the time of the first halving in November 2012 to over $1,000 a year later, and from $650 at the time of the second half in July 2016 to $20,000 in December 2017. Because of its inflationary tendency, Bitcoin gained popularity among ordinary investors as a type of digital gold. It was seen as a safe asset that added variety to a portfolio and helped protect against falling prices for other assets like stocks and bonds. But as more investors joined the market and more institutional investors got involved, Bitcoin steadily became more connected to stock markets. The Bitcoin price rose from roughly $1,000 at the start of the year to a new high of $20,000 in mid-December of that year during the 2017 cryptocurrency surge. In 2018, a strong sell-off drove the BTC price down to $8,000 in less than a month and below $4,000 before the end of the year. Bitcoin peaked at $13,129.53 in July 2019. But it wasn't until 2020, after a March sell-off in most financial assets, that the BTC price took off. With the halving in May 2020 and increased investor interest, Bitcoin closed the year at around $29,000 and is expected to rise further in 2021. In mid-April 2021, Bitcoin surpassed $64,000, prompting a boom in an increasing number of altcoins, or alternative cryptocurrencies. The price dropped to a low of $29,360.96 on July 20, 2021, then proceeded to rise during the summer until reaching an all-time high in November. How will Bitcoin fare in 2022? The decrease continued, with the Bitcoin price falling to $33,184.06 on January 24, 2022. The market tried to rebound, climbing to $45,661.17 on February 10, but fell down to $34,459.22 barely 2 weeks later when Russia invaded Ukraine, sending investors back into risk aversion mode. On March 28, Bitcoin rose to $48,086.84, but it was unable to maintain its gains. On May 12, the Bitcoin price fell to a low of $26,350.49, the same day that the US dollar index achieved a then 20-year high and the Terra cryptocurrency plummeted, fueling gloomy sentiment and forcing investors to move cash from cryptocurrencies into dollars. This is CryptoBlockIQ. Subscribe to this channel to get the latest price analysis and trading systems signals. We focus on LUNC News Today, Terra Luna Classic News Today, Luna Classic Price Prediction. Also, we present analysis on Bitcoin and Bitcoin News Today. We cover tickers, XRP, BTC, Cardano, ETH technical analysis, and BNB Hive. We also going to add explanations on topics such as how to stake Luna Classic and BNB Miner works. Our videos cover BTC technical analysis, Luna Classic price prediction, Binance USC analysis, and more, Metin 2F. In the next weeks we will add vechain live news in our videos and ethereum mainnet details. Write down below in the comments what is your strategy for the next few days. Click the card on the right to get to more price prediction and technical analysis videos.